Have you ever tried to get into the psyche of the people who built Stonehenge? Those people knew nothing about science, nothing about Greek philosophy, nothing about today's mainstream religions and spiritual systems. What they did know about was how the sun appeared to move. The sun did not do the same thing each day. The position of the sun in the sky changed slightly every day. As we now know, the apparent movement is a combination of the daily rotation of the Earth on its axis and the Earth's annual orbit around the sun. But the Stonehenge people knew none of that. For them, the sun was God, and it went through phases of waxing and waning, when it was more alive or less alive, as they interpreted it. Was it even the case that God died and then was reborn? On a daily basis, the sun god died to be replaced by the night, but then it came back to life each dawn. However, it wasn't active for the same amount of time each day. It was much more active and powerful in the summer, and much less active and powerful in the winter. On the days when the night was longest, was the sun god most dead? Was that the time of maximum jeopardy for humanity? What if the night extended indefinitely? Then everything would die. The sun god seemed to operate according to a cycle. Couldn't the same be true of humans? Could it be the case that humans died and endured a long night, and then came back to live again? The sun had seasons: youth, spring, adulthood, summer, maturity, autumn, and old age, winter. Did not a human have the same seasons? Therefore, could not a human rise again as the sun did? The sun became humanity writ large, humanity inscribed in the sky. Humanity was made in the sun's image. A human was no more dead than the sun was during the night. A human might endure a winter, but spring and summer would surely follow. A human would endure a night, but day would come again. The crops had their seasons. Why not humans? Life was cyclical. All humans return according to some cosmic cycle. The dead are not gone for good. Imagine the human soul as a miniature sun that goes out and then reignites later. It's a kind of phoenix. The stones of Stonehenge were constructed to frame at least two key events in the annual solar cycle: the midwinter sunset at the winter solstice and the midsummer sunrise at the summer solstice. Why was the symbolic death and rebirth of the sun supposed to take place at midwinter? The sun god is born at the winter solstice and grows until midsummer. Then he goes into decline, finally dying at the midwinter solstice. He is said to languish for 3 days in his grave before rising from his tomb, reborn. For this to be more obviously true, the sun ought to entirely vanish for 3 days, leaving total darkness. It does not, of course. Sun gods are typically said to be born at the winter solstice. These include Zeus, Dionysus, Osiris, Horus, Adonis, Mithras, Krishna, and Jesus. These sun gods are counted as the saviors of mankind, because the sun saves the world from darkness and chaos. The sun stands for life and can overcome death. Sun gods were believed to have incarnated upon the earth in order to help humankind. They were born of a virgin mother, the Queen of Heaven. They were born in a cave or underground chamber or humble dwelling place. They were born on 25th December, denoting the solstice. There was often a bright star in the east. They had a time of trouble where the sun was as yet too weak to triumph over darkness. There was a flight into a distant country to avoid dark forces. They were often sacrificed to benefit mankind or save mankind. They descended into the underworld or hell and rose again on the third day. They were and are powerful archetypes. The Roman Emperor Aurelian, 270 to 275 CE, supported the principle of one faith, one empire. He chose the sun god Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun, as the single god of the empire. The birthday of the unconquered sun was on December 25th. Decades later, the sun god of Christianity replaced Sol Invictus. Jesus Christ was said to have been born on 25th of December. We would have a very different world if Sol Invictus had remained the imperial cult of the Roman Empire, if Constantine had never have become a Christian. A pagan sun god would have been a far superior god. The winter solstice, typically on December 21st or 22nd, symbolizes the death of the sun, as the sun appears to stand still at its lowest point in the sky. This death is often seen as lasting 3 days, during which the sun seems to remain in the same position. The rebirth of the sun is evident by the 25th of December, when it begins to move northward again, symbolizing longer days and the return of light. That's why the 25th of December is chosen as the birthday of the sun god. The sun appears to remain in the same position on the horizon for approximately 3 days around the solstice. This period is therefore often interpreted as the sun's death. After the 3-day period, the sun begins to move northward again. This movement is interpreted as the sun's rebirth. It denotes the gradual lengthening of days. There is more and more light. The winter solstice and the subsequent rebirth of the sun have been celebrated in various cultures for thousands of years. Many myths and traditions are centered around this celestial event. It's a key point that for 3 days after the sun reaches its solstice, it appears to stand still. This period of pause between the sun's descent and ascent produced anxiety, dread, and fear in those who beheld it. What if the sun did not ascend once more? The winter solstice, the festival of rebirth, is now normally the 21st of December. The Roman Saturnalia took place on the 25th of December rather than the 21st because of issues with the Roman calendar. The 25th was once when the solstice occurred, but this changed as new calendars were introduced. Nevertheless, the 25th stuck. At the winter solstice, the sun will appear to rise from the same position on the horizon for 3 consecutive days. The term solstice is Latin for sun standing still. Likewise, at noon, the sun will reach its lowest elevation in the sky and appear at that same elevation for 3 consecutive days. When the sun rises on the 4th day, following the 3-day solstice, its sunrise position is seen to have moved, while its noon elevation is slightly higher. This heralds the reversal of the sun's descent. It is now ascending. It has been reborn. This 4th day, the culmination of the 3-day solstice festival, is therefore celebrated as the birthday of light, in which light and life is reborn or renewed. The winter solstice date is normally considered to be the 21st of December in the northern hemisphere. However, at the winter solstice, the position of the sun remains the same for 3 days. So, Christmas, instead of once having been the solstice itself, may have been the day after the 3-day solstice period when the sun was seen to start moving again. When the people of Stonehenge built their famous stone circle, it was a circle devoted to the death and rebirth of the sun and the death and rebirth of human beings. By direct analogy, stone circles were about overcoming death. They were resurrection or reincarnation machines. They helped the dead to come back by mimicking the sun, which always returned from its death.